All right, guys. So today I kind of wanted to look at the Lindell Audio PEQ-501a equalizer for the 500 series rack. And I also want to compare that to the smaller, less expensive Lindell Audio PEX-500 units because they are half the price as the PEQ-501a. But, as you're going to see, there's some differences for sure in features and in sound. So firstly, if you guys are familiar with any of the Pultec plugins, this should be pretty obvious, but these are Pultec recreations for the 500 series format. That being said, if you don't have a 500 rack, you will need a 500 rack to run these equalizers, but I highly recommend that because 500 series is a great format, especially if you're starting out, but yeah, it's worth the investment for sure, in my opinion. So I think the most obvious difference is that the PEQ is a 2-slot EQ and the PEX is single slot. So if real estate in your 500 rack is an issue or something you want to keep an eye on, that's that's one in the PEX camp. You're not gonna be too happy with the PEQs. Like as you can see here, they take up half of my 8-slot rack for 2 of them. But outside of that, I think as far as functionality and options wise, you get much more frequency selection available on the PEQs. You pretty much have everything that would be on a regular Pultec, and I think some extra frequencies also available. But the main ones are all there. Where on the PEX, you only get 3 frequencies, pre-selected frequencies per switch that you can kind of choose from, and in owning them, I actually haven't found an issue with those pre-selected frequencies in the PEX. I thought, the ones that they selected are pretty much the most widely used frequencies. So between those 3, I don't know if it's an issue. I guess it's a limitation, technically a limitation. But yeah, I haven't really found it as, a huge drawback. But depending on the source material, of course, those extra frequencies that you can choose from on the PEQs might be a huge advantage depending. The last thing that I think is kind of a huge selling point for the PEQ 501As are that all the controls are stepped. So if you want to use these on a bus or for mix bus or for mastering, these are going to be the ones that you're going to want because, with the controls being stepped, that means each side is going to be matched identically to whatever setting that you want to dial in. But that being said, I think the PEXs, they aren't stepped, but they definitely give you a really good amount of those extra dot indicators around all of the pots. So I think it's feasible if you wanted to use those on a bus as well. You're just gonna have to match those up by eye. All right, so now I want to get to the audio comparison. I'm just gonna put these on the drum bus only, and the first take through is gonna just be drum soloed. And then I'll do another pass through with bass and kind of an ambient layer, just so you can kind of hear how that would sit with a couple of instruments. But they will still only be on the drums in both clips. Also in the first pass through, I'm going to include the plugin by Plugin Alliance of the PEX-500 unit. So just so you can hear, because for the money, it's going to be interesting to hear how that can sit next to these 2 in that first audio example. So without further ado, let's check out how these guys sound, and we'll come back after. All right, so I don't know if you guys heard what I heard, but I thought all three, including the plugin, of course, I thought they all sounded just awesome. I think they just are so. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I love Pultec, style EQs, but yeah, I thought that starting with the plugin, is super impressive. I think they just did such a good job, and I think it's super cool that for the money you can actually get a plugin of something that is super affordable. I think the PEX 500s, they're like only 300 or 350 per unit. So I mean that's super attainable, and because most of the Pultec plugins are like of some random vintage historic Pultec unit that you're never gonna hear, you're never gonna know if that's exactly what they modeled it after. And every Pultec that's old and vintage sounds different and blah blah blah. But that plugin is my point is that plugin is of something that you can buy and you can tell, and I just think that's so cool. So with that out of the way, I think the PEQ and the PEX, they definitely sound different. I think the high end on the PEQ has much more range. Like I don't know if you guys noticed. I'm sure you noticed that the high boost was at 3, where the PEX was at 4. Because I think I could have maybe put it down to 2. But yeah, it just has. You can get more high end sizzle out of the PEQs, and that might be a plus, it might be a minus, however you might look at it. And you can definitely get more high end out of the PEX as well if you boost it higher. I just wanted to try to get the controls, as close as possible without making it too much of a difference. But the PEX does sound smoother in the high end. It's almost like the PEQ 501As just have kind of a wider range, slightly wider range of frequencies. Like you can get much more air and sizzle out of the PEQ if you push it, and the low end extends a little bit lower. If you have subwoofers, I'm sure you would notice that for sure. But I think at the same time, the PEXs have a really punchy low end. It's super fat, punchy low end, and that high end is just a little bit smoother. So, maybe that might be a little bit more noticeable on smaller speakers with the PEXs. But I just, I think they're both great sounding EQs. I think we're looking at more of a difference than better or worse. So I think on individual sources, either one going to be great. I think if you're looking at mastering or on mix bus and stuff like that with buses, the PEQs are going to be a really nice choice for you. And especially that plugin, I think for the money, whether you have one of these EQs or not, the plugin's a great choice as well. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you got something out of this video, and I'll see you in the next one.